Now we're going to talk about title insurance as well.
I've never had anybody that had to use it until now. One of my clients unfortunately got a bill from the Sacramento County for over $17,000. So
$17,000? I'm excited for today's episode because we're going to be doing a market update and we're going to talk about title insurance as well. Why, if you are a seller or even a buyer, you need to pay close attention to title insurance because that is super huge when buying a home. So we're going to go super in depth about that. Lisa's going to share some info that she got recently from a client of hers. So yeah, I'm excited for today's episode. What's the purpose of a title insurance, Lisa?
So when you guys buy a house, okay, there's quite a few different types of insurance. Two have, one is the home insurance, which it covers you for burglary and fire. One is the mortgage insurance that covers for the lender. Then there's the title insurance, the owner's title insurance specifically. All the years that I've been in lending, which is well over 12 years, I've never had anybody that had to use it until now. So my curiosity did get the better of me. One of my clients unfortunately got a bill from the Sacramento County for over $17,000. So
$17,000?
$17,000. That's right. You heard that right.
You say who's it from?
Sacramento County. So I did a little bit digging. I called up Sacramento County and to find out. So the home that they purchased this home in 2021. This case was opened in 2016, and the lien that was filed against it was filed in 2018. They got a request from a title company in May of 2020 who also requested for an invoice from Sacramento County. That title company didn't do anything about it. They technically don't have to just yet because if nobody bought the house, right? So the situation was there was a title company that requested this. It's an important piece, which means at that time, the lien was already visible. It was already seen. It was already on documentation. Nothing happened at that time. That amount was never paid. At that time, it was a little shy of $15,000. It was done in May of 2020. This home sold twice in 2020 before my client purchased it in 2021. So this is where it gets interesting. When you purchase a house, you do get a preliminary report that lists out all the liens on the house and everything like that. So when we receive the preliminary report, usually your lender, actually, I don't know any lenders that don't do it this way, where all those liens have to be taken care of before they're going to invest in the house and give you the money to purchase the house, right? It's like, okay, how does this happen? Okay, so when a statement of information isn't ordered from the title company to list out all those liens or an updated one, and this is the reason why the escrow period, or when you purchase a house, that's called the escrow period, not to be confused with the escrow company, okay guys? When that happens, they do their due diligence, and this is why it takes so long, because sometimes those reports may take a little bit longer if the quote-unquote rap sheet is very, very long. It was never on. I can't say if they ordered it or not. If they did order it, I think they would absolutely see it, only because I got it from the Sacramento County who told me exactly who the title company were that already requested for the invoice. And if one title company saw it, then all title companies should be able to see it. This was a property lien because the house had overgrown weeds, vegetation, transients, all causes of violation, and there was no fencing around the pool. This is why this is also interesting, because this house doesn't have a pool, you guys.
What?
That means the violation happened with a pool that may not have been permitted. The house didn't have fencing on that time. And when I looked at this house, it was super nice. My clients loved this house. It was newly renovated. It looked like it was flipped twice in 2020. It was bought in 2020 in June, okay? So remember when I told you the date was May 20th? So it's very highly unlikely that the owner, the original owner, did not know about this. So either one, the second person who bought it knew about it, but bought it in cash because they bought it for only $85,000 in 2020. There was a property in Sacramento that was only $85,000. They bought it, they flipped it, they sold it again, and they sold it again to my client in January of 2021. title insurance is going to pay for that. So my client doesn't have to worry.
Mm-mm-mm.
If you do get something like this, don't be scared, but don't ignore it as well, okay, guys? If you ever get that letter from anywhere that says that there's a lien, go back to your lender and ask them. I hope that you guys all have a great relationship with them, or at least your realtor, so that they can help guide you where you need to go to find out. So I gave my client the title information and everything like that. She was super happy, and they're going to take care of her in that way. Now, the cool thing, guys, you do have to put in a claim. The longer this goes on, if you choose to sell your house later on, this issue is still going to be on the house. So don't just ignore it. All you have to do is put in a claim, just like if you go into a car accident, just in case, like if your house had a fire or anything like that, put in the claim. The title insurance will pay for that.
Even though it closed.
Or even though it closed, you're good. Here's the thing. If you are a seller, don't think that that title insurance is going to cover for you. They're going to come after you. So now that the house has changed hands 3 times,
yeah,
who's at fault? The first person that already knew about it? Did they disclose it to the buyer, the second buyer, and the second buyer who may have bought it in cash says, "Who? I'm all right."
I know that, whenever people buy homes, because we don't know how they bought it, right? Back when it was $80,000, they could have bought it in a trust. And from my experience, when an investor buys a property from a trust, they don't know anything about it. And
not
so,
only do they not know anything about it, if you buy it in a trust or if you buy it in cash, you're not required to have any of this. And that's
Right.
the thing. If you're looking to save money and you're buying something in cash, okay? Or let's just say, for instance, because again, there's technically 4 exchanges. The first person sold it to this first flipper, okay? 85,000. I'm gonna guess that it's in cash. This person bought it for 168,000, so I'm thinking probably both of them are in cash. So let's just say this second person bought it. If this person bought it in cash, they knew about it from person number 1. If person number 1 didn't disclose it to person number 2, they're the one that's going to be on the hook, right? They're going to have to prove it. Person number 2 buys it from person number 1, doesn't think of it. Maybe it wasn't malicious. Maybe he was just like forgetful or first time flipper or something like that. Sold it to this person who had no idea, also bought it in cash, didn't get a title report, didn't get any of that stuff, sold it to person number 4, which is
I wonder if the statute of limitation is going to apply though.
No, there is no statute of limitation when it comes to this. I actually asked the title company about this. So that's a good news. That's a good news, guys. That's the reason why title insurance is so super important. So when you see that, just rest assured, 99% of the time, it's not going to happen. But when situations like this happen, oh my goodness, I'm so glad for my client. Now, the title company is going to go back and figure it out. Well, who did not do their due diligence, right? And if they cannot get a hold of the seller, and unfortunately, the original seller, was an LLC. So if it's an anonymous LLC and they find out that it's the very original person that got it, I don't know if it's anonymous or not. I didn't get that far, guys. But if that's the case, the title insurance company is going to go to the listing agent.
Wow. Okay. And that's another set of liability for the listing agent. Okay.
Absolutely. So I'm sharing this because, one, after so many years of real estate, this is first news to me. This is kind of neat thing to learn, right? But if you're selling and you're shortcutting the selling process by not going on to your preliminary report, and mind you, we live in a very litigious state. So anybody could sue you. It takes forever for that lien to go on. And if you sell the house not knowing that somebody put a lien on you, but before you sell your house, make sure you work with a listing agent that will also have a really solid title company that will absolutely do all of that due diligence. And if it comes up, pay for it. Pay for it so it doesn't bite you in the butt later on.
Yeah, it's funny because you reminding me of, I think I told you this, of a situation where there was this client that was interested in this house. The listing agent told me to call him first before I submitted an offer. So of course I called, and the agent told me, okay, look, just so you know, this home has a lien from the HOAs, but they can't call it due until a couple years. So technically right now we can sell it without paying off that lien. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Is it going to come up on the title insurance? And the agent goes, no, it's not, because even if it does, we already filed with the attorney. And when we went to court, the court basically just said the HOAs in the future can call that balance due anytime they want. So it could be in a month from closing, it could be in 6 months, it could be a year to 2 years. And then I told I went back to my client, right? And I was like, do you still want to pursue this home? Because it has HOA dues. And this is a situation. And then my client goes, what? Why would I want to buy that now? Like, it's a gamble. How much is the HOA due? It's like $10,000 of back fees, right? So it's interesting how that works, right? Because if it's a lien, or I mean, in this case, right, it's by HOAs, back fees. How are they able to do that? Why would they not just settle it and pay it off versus waiting for the HOAs to call it due in the future? Have you ever heard about anything like this?
I have not. And I have some questions because I'm very curious about this. So, Lisa, so is this insurance mandatory? And then the other question is, after all of this happens, the insurance company they're going to go and dig through and do all of this to figure out who's responsible, right? And then if they can't, then you're saying it's going to be on one of the listing agents or something of that nature, right? Where does this end? I mean, are they actually going to go through the whole process to try to figure out who's responsible for this? Or are they just going to go on the last person that they can get a hold of? Or how does that work?
Personally, I don't see how that's possible because they're going to have to prove that the listing agent knew about it. Insurance company is an insurance company. Their main objective is not to pay out. That's really what it is. And if they have to, they're going to find the person that's responsible, which
they want the money back.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fairly so, right? And they're going to have to prove. Now, here's the thing. Here's the other thought that came into my mind too. Agents, when you're listing the property, I think regardless of what your sellers are telling you, you absolutely should just get that preliminary report to find out all of that stuff. Because if there's any indication, any emails, any correspondence that shows that you could have known, even if you didn't open that email, that can of worms that you probably don't want.
Yeah, sometimes even sellers don't know, and so when it happens, it could be a shock. Like, I've got into contract with listing agents before to where a seller did not know that they had like a PACE lien or a PACE loan on their mortgage, and it showed up on the prelims, and the seller did not account for that amount to be paid off as well, because now he's gonna come back short on the net. So because of that, decided to cancel on the listing, and me and my buyer, we had to go back and look for a home because he did not account for that PACE loan being on there, because it was like maybe 10-15 years back, when he bought the home.
Yeah, that's a sad thing too, because there's a lot of silent loans out there. There's the PACE loan. There's a couple of other ones that are similar to the PACE loan. Even the CalHFA down payment assistance, they're all silent loans, which means if you pull a credit report, it's not going to show. And that's the other thing too. When it's a seller, as a lender, I don't pull the seller's credit report. I only pull the buyer's credit report. So I have no idea what the seller owes. And if they forget about that stuff, the listing agent probably won't know either, because as a listing agent, you don't pull the seller's credit.
Right.
You have to know this. When you sell your house, you got to keep your paperwork. You got to keep it on track. If you know you got these things, write it down, put it on a spreadsheet, something of that sort, so that you're not short when you're trying to sell the house. In the event, how can it affect a listing agent, right? I think I heard something of this sort earlier. Here's where it could, I think, come down to the listing agent. There are listing agents, unfortunately, out there. If you're desperate for the sale, the seller tells you, like, well, I have this situation. I don't know if I can sell the house. It's like, hey, don't worry about it. We'll just roll the die and everything like that. They work with the title person and they say, hey, there is this issue. And the title person is like, hey, you know what? You brought me so much business. We just won't order the statement of information. Now, that's the worst case scenario, and that's pretty shady. Okay. That's the worst case scenario that, I can think of. But let's just say it wasn't the case, guys. It wasn't the case. The title company goes back to the seller and the seller says, well, that's what my listing agent told me to do. How are you going to combat that? Right. Yeah. And that's where I think that it's going to get very tricky, because if the seller knowingly did that and thinking that obviously he's thinking he's going to be able to get away with it. Do you think,
listing agent, if you do that, walk away from the seller.
Absolutely. Because in this situation, I think somebody's going to be thrown under the bus.
And you're going to lose your license for life. You can't practice it no more. And if this is a career that you've been building for years, it's not worth risking it. And if that seller doesn't want to use your service because you're telling them the truth, it's fine. They're going to go find another agent that is willing to fork it out. It's going to come back and bite their butts. in a big way, you know, and it is not worth it. Just walk away. If you are that type of agent and you meet a seller that's shady like that, there are shady sellers out there, okay? You just gotta fire that seller. It's not worth that paycheck.
I did not dig that deeply, you guys. So this is the other thing too. If you're selling your home on your own, if this was actually a
Isbo.
for sale by owner type of situation and you did not do your due diligence and there was no original listing agent, well then that explains it. That to me actually makes more sense.
No, and I'm glad you shared it, Lisa, because these stories are gonna relate, you know, and hopefully it begs the question of, shoot, do I need an agent? Yes, you do. You need an agent that you trust, because especially like what you mentioned last, if you're buying a home that's off market, tell your agent to get involved, somebody that you trust, and just find out. Have your agent call that owner up and find out about it, and he's gonna be able
Yeah.
to tell you or have a pretty good idea why that seller is gonna sell it to you, or might not want to deal with an agent. There's sellers out there that are shady, y'all. Like, we live in the USA.
Yeah.
Come on. You know, and I've
Which
seen
is
so much.
I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen people who buy houses from their landlord, and it seems like it's a really great deal because the landlord says, hey, I'm going to sell it to you. You guys have been a really, really good tenant. We're not going to go to the agent to save us both some money. On top of that, I'm going to give you a deal, and I'm just going to sell you the house for $200,000, even though it's worth $300,000. That sounds like a steal of a deal, right? Do your due diligence, you guys. Have your agent involved. Pay at least that fee for them, and it gives you the peace of mind that all of the paperwork, all of the things are done properly for you.
It is so important.
So Lisa, that was the other question I was asking you. So is this title insurance required?
I know that in
Yes.
California it's required.
It's not a requirement like a government requirement like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, nothing like that. It's a requirement because the lender wants to make sure that that's not going to happen. Because realistically, if you could not pay it, if the seller could not pay it, it stays on the house, which means it's a risk to the lender. So yeah, they're going to put that caveat on there that we require that you get owner's titles insurance. There are private lenders, hard money lenders, they don't require any of this stuff. They take a much bigger risk, but they also charge a much higher interest rate. The only time that the lenders typically are going to be like, okay, it's cool, we won't worry about that, is brand new builds.
Because it's a clean new home, new area, new district. Well, thanks for sharing that, Lisa, because that is bananas. That is crazy. So
That
if
is
you guys
crazy.
are buying or selling a home, y'all, if you guys are buying or selling, get title insurance, okay? Because you never know. 5-6 years down the line, you might get a bill from the county. And you won't know why. So get title insurance to cover your butt. There you guys go. I'm just thankful for all you guys for watching and engaging, sending your comments, messaging me privately, all of that, all the phone calls. We will see you guys next week. Thank you guys for your time on a Friday night. Be safe out there, y'all, and stay cool.